Good to go,
Awesome.
my friend.
Awesome. All right, everyone. We are back with episode 4. I have my guest today, Jerrod Hardy. I actually was on Jerrod's podcast. I think it was August of last year. It was over the summer.
Yeah.
And he's been he's given me some good advice, some good little tidbits over the last year or so that have actually, partially also come into why this podcast is also here today. So betting on yourself, taking risks, and I feel like that's just what Jerrod does now, especially in the retired life. But
Yeah.
Jerrod,
Well,
welcome.
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the Limitless Momentum podcast with Ariana Stone. Right. That wasn't even a thing last time we talked.
It wasn't even
So
it wasn't even a thought. Wasn't even a
congratulations
thought.
on jumping into it.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's so good to see you and to see you doing the things that fulfill you. You know what I mean? I think that's what this life is all about, is doing the things that we find joy in, doing the things that make our days worth getting up for. And like I told you after our show way back in the day, like you can't expect nobody else to bet on you if you don't first bet on you. And
100%.
and that's how we create that limitless momentum, right? In our life, is we bet on ourselves, we continue to bet on ourselves, and then all of a sudden we look at our circle and it's a bunch of people that bet on themselves. And now it's
Mhm.
almost a race to see like who can do something more, not in a negative way, but in an empowering, uplifting way, because we're all moving in one direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then I think it's hard too that people will then compare, because then you're like, all right, well, if Jared's here and I'm only here and I want to be here, but well, so even for podcast sake, how long have you had the On Purpose podcast? How long
The
have you been doing it?
we started in March of 2019.
Yeah, see, so you're already almost
My
4 years into
podcast
it.
could go to kindergarten. It'll be 5 in March.
You could go to kindergarten.
What? I raised a podcast that can go to school. That's what I say.
See,
Yeah.
another kid growing up going through school.
Dude, trust me on that. It's interesting though, right? Comparison gets a really bad rap. Um, People say comparison is the thief of joy, which I agree, right? It can be the thief of joy if I'm stuck in comparison, where I'm comparing myself, but my self-talk is negative. So I compare and I say, well, you're not good enough because you can't do this. I compare and I say, you can't do that because of this. But I think on the flip side, sometimes comparing is good because it means you're in a race. It means you're into something. I'm looking to somebody else who's maybe better than me to learn something from them. Right. And I think that's one of the, if I could just share, like I would say, quit with quit buying into everything as either or. Right. I'm either for something or I'm against something. I can't be ever in the middle. I'm saying there's a lot of life in the middle. Like police work's always in the middle for the first, right? It's all gray.
100%.
And comparing, yeah, if I compare, but I have healthy self-talk. If I compare, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm capable of this because I saw Ariana doing this and I like that. So now I'm gonna model it, but I'm gonna make it mine. That's good comparison. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
I agree. And I know because last time we talked about negative self talk. So even trying to adjust that and being like, okay, well, if I've done like even for a podcast, like, okay, I started this. And now I'm like, okay, now I have to think of ideas and like you can listen to other podcasts and see how other people do
For
things or like,
sure.
ooh, I like that, they ask this or, when we get to questions at the end, like there's a purpose for me asking these questions because they're going to be compiled into something else later,
Right.
But no, it is. I agree with you. Comparison can be the thief of joy, but if you're looking at it in a different perspective and in a positive light, it can be motivating.
Yeah. As most things in life can be, right? If we get out of the in sum game where everything is either for or against, and just like what can I learn from this? What can I enjoy in this process? And if you think of life is a process, right? Like it's never until it's over, it's always a process. You're learning, you're experiencing, you're stumbling, you're getting back up, you're having successes, you're failing. If I learn to enjoy that, where's my bad days come from?
Yeah.
Right? Like if I
Yeah.
enjoy it, where we're gonna talk about mental health later, but where does all the sadness come from? Where does all the darkness come from? If I truly just enjoy the process of being a human and living an imperfect life.
Yeah. I mean, and that's even something one of my things to do for 2024 um to battle, should I battle negative self-talk, but I have a note in my phone. So every day I put in something
Mm,
that good happened that day.
love it.
Like whether it was, I went to Chipotle for lunch or someone smiled at me, whatever it was, but something to me that was good. So like today, it's going to be being able to record with you. Unless something else tops it, because it's
Yeah,
only the morning. We've got the rest of the
yeah,
day. But no, it
love
is.
it.
It's something like that. Like it's a little success. Or like even if a couple weeks ago I had such a shitty week, but every day it made me reflect on, all right, even though today wasn't that great, what little piece out of that can I pull out of it that was good?
For
And that's
sure.
that's been beneficial for sure.
Yeah, that's huge, right? But and I love that. And I also think this: if every day was perfect, how would you know you had a perfect day?
Yeah, it'd just be another day. You
It'd
wouldn't
just be
know.
the same. So
Like Groundhog Day.
eventually it wouldn't be good or bad. It'd be the exact same, right? Like we have to have lows to know that a high is elating.
Yeah.
We have to stub our toe to feel pain to know joy and victory, right? Like we have to like that's what I'm saying. Like this mentality that we seem to have now where everything is split and it's extreme on both ends. That's not good for us. And that's not where the happy part of life is gonna be. Right? To me,
Yep.
like I'm happiest when I get to be all of me. That means I can be sad, I can be happy, I can be up, I can be down, I can lose, I can win. Like I don't have to avoid any of it because that's truly where my story's written.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, see, look at you. You're just hitting me with all the knowledge, Steve. Just all because it is. I mean, just even into looking at something into a different perspective like that. Like no one's gonna wake up and be like, well, not every day is perfect, or yesterday sucked, and I don't know what to do, and everything blows. It's like, yeah, but at least try to give that positive outlook in it, or try to,
You woke up.
yeah,
What's the statistic? How many people don't wake up the next day? It's a lot.
oh, yeah. I was gonna say I don't know, but it's a lot, and now I'm gonna
It's
have
a
to look
lot.
it
A
up.
lot of people didn't make it to today. They passed overnight. Congratulations, you won. Step 1, you already won. You're alive.
Yeah, day like 10,064 or whatever.
You're
Since
still
you're
alive.
still alive. And then yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I turned 30 in April, so I'm
Uh-oh.
like, oh man, I know
Still
it's
a
coming.
baby, my friend, just a baby.
Well, that's what everyone says because everyone's like, "Oh, 30, 30 always seems so 30 always seems so old." And now I'm like, "Shit." I'm like, maybe 60 seems old because because there's some
Yeah,
days where I feel old, but then 30 now I'm like, "Oh, just even the stuff that you can do or that you still have potential to do."
for sure. I
It's
saw
not
a
like
qu
you hit 30 and you're done.
Yeah, let me see if I can remember. I know the quote, but I can't remember who said it, and the quote was, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?"
Ooh.
Right, and let me see if I can figure out who said that. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? Pretty crazy, right? Like, if you
No.
don't
I'm
tell
like
me I'm
thinking
a
about it.
certain age, then I just go off how I feel, and I feel young, I feel vibrant, I feel excited.
How old would you put yourself if you didn't know?
Mm, 30s, 35 maybe. Just old enough because my 20s were full of arrogance and just don't tell me shit. I know everything kind of mentality.
Mhm.
Um, 30s were good, man. Like it was a balance of knowing stuff, learning stuff. So I'd say I still feel like I'm 35.
I feel like physically, I should say that. Physically, I feel older than because I'm like thinking back to my early 20s. And I was like, oh, I was rip roaring and doing this and staying
Mm.
up and being able to get up and go to work and not feel like everything hurts if I sleep wrong. And yeah, I don't know. I'd put myself probably my early 20s. We'll say 23, even though it's
Oh,
like
good.
a Blink song. No one likes you when you're 23, but you know,
Satchel Paige said that. The old time
interesting.
baseball player.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because he played when he was super like advanced age. Yeah, Satchel Paige. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, I feel great, and honestly, even physically, like at this age, I'm doing things that I didn't do in my 20s because I've adjusted, right? And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I'm not fixated on today. Jerrod has to do the exact same things that 23-year-old Jerrod had to do, right? Like I'm allowed to
Mhm.
grow. I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to pivot. I'm allowed to be wrong. I'm allowed to have thought one thing and go, maybe I'm wrong. I don't have to hold on to it and identify with a decision that no longer serves me.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
I'm
just
allowed
even
to
like
grow.
or yeah, or just being like 5-year-old or, 5 years ago, Ariana
For
wouldn't be
sure.
thinking in the same mindset that almost 30-year-old is.
And you shouldn't be, right? Like,
Mhm.
what there's another quote out there, right? Like, if you're thinking the same at like 80 as you were at 20, you wasted 60 years.
Yep.
But I
Yeah,
think
because I wouldn't have learned anything. It
you were
stayed the
shut
same,
down. You already knew it all.
or
You
thought I
already
knew it
knew it.
all.
For sure, you weren't open to other perspectives,
No.
right? And that's I think the thing that comes with age is realizing, man, I don't have to know everything. Matter of fact, life is boring if I already know stuff. Like I need to do things I don't know. I need to try things I don't know. That's how you stay young at heart. I always
Well,
say being curious.
that's just even what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about editing, and that's why I said I was like, it's something that I don't know or that I'm
Love
learning
it.
to do, and it's just something to add to the tool belt, and if it's really something out of my wheelhouse where I'm like, I definitely need to delegate this to somebody else, we'll do it in a heartbeat, but
For sure.
I have to at least try it
Yeah. No, I'm
and see what
100% for
happens.
it. Yeah, I'm 100% for trying things, and then if you don't like it, stay in your lane. Like, you can create a great podcast without having to do everything,
Mhm. Well, I
right?
think too, like, just even, like, conversations we've had, I feel like you would have been the cop that's sitting there, on calls being like, "All right, well, we have this situation, and so what are we gonna do about it? Here's what we can do." And I don't mean that negatively, I mean that it's
Yeah,
positive because there's obviously we know that there's officers that would just, "All right, well, you either have a problem or you don't, and I'm gonna dip," instead of maybe spending an extra 5 or 10 minutes with somebody to help solve a problem.
yeah, but I gotta tell you too, Ariana, I was blessed to have worked in a time before policing was focused solely on data, right? I was able to work in a time when you could actually spend time on calls without people wondering, like, why this call took 20 minutes instead of the average compiled data says it should have been 12.2, 12 minutes and 27 seconds. You spent 20. What'd you do with the other 7 minutes and 30 seconds? We need that back in our day, right? Like we've created this statistical, like, data dilemma for police work, right? Because police work is not widgets, it's not comparable. We're not on a factory line. You can't just have me and Ariana work the same shifts, the same day, the same time. And at the end of our shift, if I made 40 widgets and you made 65, you're a more effective employee. Like, we don't do that. We're dealing with humans,
Yep.
which means every human has a problem, right? They're going to have a different way of solving it. They're going to want a different way of communication. And our job is to solve problems. But I can't solve problems effectively if my goal is to get in and out as quick as possible.
Right. And
Right?
people notice that. People see that because 'cause they're like, they can tell. They can tell by your body language, they can tell by your tone, they can tell, just
Eh,
people can tell if you don't not to say that you don't care, but people can tell if you're just like, "Yep, this is just another thing to check off, and I gotta get to the next one because the city's burning, and good luck."
and even if you're not in police work, you're just listening to this because you're a community member. You can tell when somebody's engaged in a conversation with you to learn versus they're talking to you because your paths crossed and they can't wait to get it off their list to get to the next thing.
Mhm.
Right? Like we've, and it's a hindrance in police work because here's my thought. If you ask the community what do they want relationships with police officers. They want to know the cops that are coming to calls. Well, how do they get to know them? They have to know your story a little bit. They have to know a little bit about you. You have to consistently be there for them.
Yeah.
That's what the community wants. What's the agency wants? The agency wants cops getting the calls quickly and clearing, getting to the next call quickly. They want statistics to justify funding. Right? I mean, that's the truth. We have to have statistics. How do we go to calls? What's the call response time? Are we making it less? Is it getting greater? How's it compared to our neighbors? What kind of calls are we taking? How many arrests do we have? Blah, blah, all the statistics. So you got the community saying, we want your time as a human. Agencies a lot of time want you to be fast and efficient, almost robotic, right? Where we get through and we get through.
Yeah.
And then who's caught in the middle? Well, the officer's caught in the middle because if I spend too much time on a call, make a citizen happy, the agency's like, why'd you take so long on this call? If I cut the call quick to get back out and write another traffic ticket, the citizens are like, why didn't you spend more time on this call? You know,
Mhm.
so then you like, okay, well, how the hell do I win in this battle?
Yeah.
And part
And
of it is realizing police work is all about people.
yeah, you're there for the people and to try like
It's all about people. It's people external, it's people internal. Within the agency, it's people. If we want our if we want our officers to give the best service to the citizens, we as leaders need to give our best service to our officers before they go on the street every day. Right? We can't have a culture that doesn't allow a wholeness within the building and expect it outside.
yeah. And that's when they talk about, morale or how, they're trying to recruit all across the country and people don't want to be the police and this and that. And part of me is like, you can't force someone's going to want to do this job. And really I should say that about any job, but specifically this job. And you have to have some kind of drive to do it or some kind of want. And everyone gets, I shouldn't say everyone, but people give the stereotypical that I want to help people, I want to serve and protect my community. And yeah, that's part of it.
Sure.
But like now, since we last spoke, I'm not in patrol anymore. I'm actually with our crisis intervention unit, which is basically
Right.
our mental health unit.
Mhm.
And that's opened my eyes. It's a whole different thing from patrol, completely separate. I'm in a completely different position. Um, but realizing, especially with starting Limitless Momentum and getting more engaged with mental health, that's something that I have an interest in and a drive for, then I'm going to put in for something that luckily my agency is big enough to have,
Mhm.
um, to good and maybe help, the community members that are having mental health crisis, because we also do stuff with people with special needs. We have a certain program too. So if we encounter someone that, maybe someone's, nonverbal autistic and they run away and we got to try
Mhm.
to find them, then parents can fill out a form to be like, all right, you know, Jerrod he likes Marvel movies. He doesn't like loud noises. Don't try to approach him. Just certain things that'll help so that if you do come across him that are going to be beneficial in getting him safe.
Mm.
So coming to
Great.
learn just different, it's all behind the scenes stuff. And we also have social workers too.
For
So
sure.
co-responding with them is huge because sometimes, as we know, people don't want to talk to the police, but you have a social worker with you and someone who actually is, a mental health, professional, I would say. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's great, right? And so what is that, right? That's your recruiting pitch right there, right? That is how you get the next generation to want to do this job. And that's one of the things that when I hear people bash the generations, I always pause for a second. I'm like, how do we get a new generation? Right? Study generations for a little bit. A generation usually goes the opposite of the generation before them, right? If
Mhm.
you read books on generations, they ebb and flow. This generation is going to be more like two generations ago and less like the one we're currently in, right? And then it's going to alternate. Boom, boom. So, is it their fault or is it ours? As law enforcement, if we want the next generation to want to be cops, is it realistic to try to appeal them to the same way we appeal to the last generation, which was job security, decent pay, benefits, retirement?
I
Well,
think it's
no,
part
right?
of it.
It could be, but for the vast majority, it's not. What do they want? Like, just watch their lifestyle. What do they want? They want flexibility. They want to know they're important. They want to be able to travel. They want to have experiences. One of the things I think we miss in law enforcement is just what you explained. Hey, join our agency. Look at all the different experiences you can have while working at one place and having a consistent retirement for 20 and 20 years. Right?
Yeah.
Like police work is not just patrol. It starts there. Everybody earns their stripes there. But once you get past it, here's all the different places you can go within one agency. You don't have to move anymore if you don't want to.
Mhm.
right? And appeal to it, right? And then the other thing is, what is the expectation? Well, how many people do you know that did 25, 30, 35 years and then they pass away within 7 years of retirement, which is a huge a statistic that's been out there, right? Law enforcement officers usually, if they do 25 to 30 plus years, have a 7-year less life expectancy than an average citizen. Okay, well, if I know that, should I want my employees working 30 years to take 7 off? Is that a good steward of their life? Or should I try to be like, hey, let's get you in here. Let's have you work for 15, 20, and then go do something else. Take all the skills we're going to get into you and go do something.
Yeah. I think the
Right.
days of, like you said, like working your 20, 25, 30. I think those days are in the rear view.
Well, and should they be? Right. Like, let's look at that. Like, if we want to do data, let's collect the data. Let's look at it and say, is that good for us? Is it good to have a cop on that has 30 years of experience but can only work in certain roles? Okay, maybe we need expertise. So maybe we need a certain percentage that has that expertise level. But I would argue if you got a street cop that's been on 30 years, so now they're in their 50s or 60s and they're still out having to wrestle around with 18 to 22-year-old bad people, is there other options for us?
Yeah.
And this shouldn't be for everybody, but are we thinking that? And that's what I'm saying about this next generation is our job as law enforcement professionals to bring a message to them that makes them want to be part of it. And to not just bash them for having different ideas than our generation had. They're supposed to have generational differences, just like we had differences from our parents' generation.
Yep.
But if you sit and want to do the same thing, yeah, man, you're gonna get the same result. If it's what you want.
Yeah. Okay. And then where were you an officer? Sorry, I
So I
forgot.
did 21 years before I retired at the end of 2018. I started in Montana. I was actually in Butte, Montana for 4 years. And then we went down to Fort Collins, Colorado, where I finished out my career. And yeah, we retired. I was only 46 at the end of 2018. So retired for us is just leaving. Honestly, like, we don't have health benefits. We didn't have a pension. We had a 401k. So that money's all tied up for my future self and my wife. So it was like what I told you is betting on myself, right? Like, 46 years, I had done 21. We're good. Like, I want to go do some other stuff. So we were blessed to be smart with our money. We didn't overindulge on a lot of things. We were able to be debt free. So we could take a leap and walk away and make less money, but create experiences and happiness. And that's what we did.
What and you don't have to answer this if you don't want
Now,
to.
go ahead. I'll
But
answer it, whatever.
what was your final, like, all right, it's time for me to be done? Aside from wanting to go off and,
Yeah.
do other stuff, like, was there anything that was, I don't wanna say like a defining moment, but something where you're like, "Yep, it's time."
You know what it was? And it had been this way for a while. Probably like 5, 6 years in my career, I noticed a lot of guys and men and women, 25 years plus on the job, would start conversations with like, it's a good day, only 11,842 more days till I can retire, right? Or whatever it is. And I would be like, man, you're literally like spending all your days counting down to when you end this career. And I had a boss in my last assignment. He started every day with that. That was good. Only 362 more days till I retire, whatever it was. But then you ask him, like, what are you going to do when you retire? And he said, well, maybe I'll be a Walmart greeter. And I'm like, man, is that all? Like, is that all we got? Like, for this whole career, you're willing to go die for your community, die for the men and women alongside of you. And at the end, you don't feel like you have any skills to do something different. So my wife and I had talked when we were like 5, 6 years in, like, we're going to do about 20 and then we're going to go do something completely different. So it's kind of up to us to have options.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same way I raised my kids, is always have options. And that was it. So it wasn't a defining like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. It was just like, okay, I know I'm leaving because I've seen what happens when you stay too long. Like Michael Jordan, if he'd have walked away from the 98 Bulls, top of the world, people forget he went and played for the Wizards for like 3 years.
Mhm.
Right? Like, you don't want that. I don't want to be that Michael Jordan. George St. Pierre, if you're a fight fan, one of my favorite fighters, left when he was still the champion. So you never saw his decline. You never saw him not want to be there, not want to train hard enough. And I think that's, to me, is if you don't want to put in the prep work to be a police officer anymore, you're not studying case law. You think you know everything. Maybe you're not as fit as you used to be. You want to go do something else. Like, figure out how to go do it. And that was kind of always our plan. So I started doing jujitsu in 2003 just as a way to expand my knowledge of defensive tactics, because where we were didn't teach anything on the ground. And I was watching the UFC and stuff. And I'm like, okay, we got to have some skills in this area. And my favorite assignment was my last assignments when I ran a training academy. So I got to, be part of the recruiting, the hiring, and then training and supervising our newest officers for the first year. Um, and that combined with when I started fighting, I actually did MMA fights from 2014 to 2016. And that's when I saw a disconnect between how I was coached to fight in a sport, which has rules, agreed upon weight class. I know exactly the day and the time I'm going to fight. I know, I know all this. And I was blessed to be training with a world champion coach, Brian Schultz. And I started to notice like how much skill base we developed in practice and how much mental toughness we developed and how much belief we were forced to develop and how we would be put in bad situations and get out to understand that we could do this. And I started thinking about law enforcement, like all the training I've been going to for the last 15 years. And it's always about skills. It's not about, do I believe I can do it? It's not about, do I believe and is my heart into it? And will I fight through a tough predicament? It's about getting through training to say I've been trained, not
Yeah.
winning. And so then in 2014, so we had about 4 years left on our career, we launched our own business to teach ground tactics coaching, to basically bring coaching to law enforcement, coaching to win, not survive, teaching skills that let you win fights and let you go on the street knowing you're prepared, because we're going to make you sweat. Like police training should be, you should sweat. You should need some water. You
Yep.
should, it shouldn't be all roses, because the bad guys on the street, there's an imbalance, right? If we don't train to the level of resistance we're going to face on the street, if that happens, that gap in between is confusion. We don't know
Mhm.
really what we're going to do. And I noticed like I was training for 3 3-minute rounds for these fights, but my practices would be like 5 3-minute rounds, 6 3-minute rounds. We'd double it so that I knew on fight night when I walked into that cage, I could easily go 3 3-minute rounds because I've been training 6 3-minute rounds. I've been going longer. And so that was kind of how we started launching our business and kind of segued into our ability to walk away from law enforcement.
That's awesome. Do you now I know you said you're mostly doing stuff in Montana or in, like, with their
Mhm.
training academies, but are you willing to go,
No, we
you
travel the
all over?
country. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in, let's see, we got a couple in Montana this year. We're in Colorado. We're in Virginia. Yeah, we travel the
Nice.
country. Yeah, and that was, we launched this business in 2014. 2020 was set to be our biggest year. We should have been in about 8 states, and then something called COVID hit. I don't know if you remember that,
Never
but,
heard of it.
never heard of it. Yeah, it was an interesting time. So we got shut down, and obviously we do in-person ground tactics coaching. So we certify law enforcement to coach their agency. Um, and I'm not going to do it online because you can't be good at retaining your weapon on the ground by watching a video. You got to do it.
No,
And you
yeah.
can't, right. There's things you got to do, and you got to touch other humans, and you got to grapple with them a little bit. And, we actually my wife and I had a lot of talks about, do we rebuild this business or do we walk away? Are we being subject to something that can just be shut down beyond our control? What are we comfortable with? And we just stuck with it and continued to pour into it, and now it's doing great again.
That's awesome. And see, and that's the thing too. It's like you stuck with it even though, COVID kinda put a put a stop at the time to almost everything, the entire world,
For sure.
but you were still like, "Nope, I have faith in this. This can be something. It's not gonna be like this forever." Well, and when I mean that COVID,
Yeah.
and, and you're passionate about it, and like you said, getting that one-on-one time, being on the ground, being like even me, like when we have because now we have it mandated every year that we have,
Nice.
defensive tactics,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm an average size, but if I'm going up to one of our gang dudes that's like 6'2", a solid 250, that might most likely be one of the people that I might be dealing with on the street.
For sure.
Or it could be someone that's half my size. You never know, but I'd rather
I
be
don't know.
prepared for that ginormous dude than someone that's even comparable to my size.
Yeah. I'd love you to be prepared for all of them.
That too, yes.
Right. And how do we get there? Well, we got to train with different partners. We got to train in a dynamic atmosphere that allows for realistic training while minimizing injury potential. Right. Because we can do it all. And that's the thing I hear agencies like, oh, I don't know, we might get hurt. You might get hurt. That's the truth. You might get hurt. You might get hurt on the street too.
I might get hurt walking out of my house
You,
today.
you might get hurt waking up.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, you might. But I think you also got to believe like we've been doing this a long time. In our 10th year of coaching these classes, we're pretty good at minimizing injury, and a lot of that came from coaching in the civilian world. We owned our MMA gym for the last, gosh, up until 2021. We sold it when we decided to go live on the road. But yeah, I was coaching civilians, right? And I'm like, man, like this, you can do this when students are paying to be there. If you injure everybody, you're not going to have a good paying student base. So you
Mhm.
take those same principles and apply them to law enforcement. Good warm-up routines, structured, scalable workout parameters, right? Like if you're 23 and you're just coming out of the academy, maybe I can push you a little harder than I push the guy that's 55 and heading into retirement, and still get skills that let them believe in themselves. They'll get skills to where they can win that encounter on the street so that they're not going out there bluffing their way through, overreacting, underreacting, fearful, lacking confidence, but they truly believe in themselves. And that's a huge thing to me is I want cops to perform, right? And that's why I say coaching, not instructing. Coaching is when I teach you something and then you can go out and perform it when it matters most. That's coaching. Instructing is when I just give you information, you do with it what you want. There's no tie back to me, right? And that's why I challenge my students. If I knew that I'm going to coach you today and I'm going to be judged on how well you do on this call on Saturday night at 3 a.m. in the roughest part of your town, and how you react determines if I'm successful or not. How much differently would I make this practice session for you? How much more would I pour into you? Right?
Yeah.
I would pour a ton because I'm being judged on this. But a lot of times in law enforcement, we're just about exchanging information, making sure you said you attended class, but not really, can you be better at what I just showed you? Can you actually do it?
Right. But then
And
also taking that, like you're laying the groundwork and giving the foundation and the tools, but then it's also up to whether the civilian or the officer to then continue building on those tools. Because like doing defensive tactics once a year, you
not
know,
enough.
no, not
How
even
many
close.
hours is that?
I mean, it's a full day, so it's 8 hours.
8 hours.
Mhm.
8 hours and for a whole year, right? Like that's
Yep.
if you were a yeah, I mean, we could go in a lot of places with that, but yeah, if it's what you got, then make it the best damn 8 hours you got. That's what I'm gonna say. Like ideally, I think it should be more than that. As much as you were touching people and trying to make grown ass humans do things that is against their best interest, which is comply and go to jail, essentially, right? Like if we're
Right.
talking defensive tactics, I'm not talking about your verbal judo and interview and interrogation. Like that's all separate skills. But I'm talking about for those minutes when you got to deal with somebody that has to go, and it's up to you to make them. You got to be prepared.
100%.
So if it's only 8 hours, then fine. It's only 8 hours, but make it the best 8 hours. Don't go through the motion and put them on break every 50 minutes for 10 minutes, right? Because now you did just lost a whole hour. Don't say it's 8 hours, but I go on break every 10 minutes every hour and I get an hour lunch break because now your 8 hour training day is really 6 hours.
Yeah,
You
I
know
guess
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
I guess I didn't
like
think
we,
about it
we
that way.
rob time. And I'm not saying you can't have lunch. I'm not saying you shouldn't take breaks. But what I'm saying is in the meantime, pour into them, make them better. And that's what I always challenge my students. Like law enforcement sometimes isn't selfish enough and that I don't go to training, especially if I'm in a place that's blessed with a lot of training. I kind of just show up and take whatever they give me. I have no agenda for what I personally want to achieve in this class. Right? I have nothing like I just kind of go because the baseline is did I show up? Did I
Yeah.
check the attendance box? That's it. Once I did that, I'm good. Was I remember another word of what they said? I'm good. I want you to be selfish. I want you to come to class and go, you know what, Jerrod, I want you to teach me this. I want to get this out of today's class. Cool, that's what I want. Let's do it. And how do we do that? Well, we involve the students, right? We ask the students, what is it you want to get from this class? So now I know, hey, we're going to cover these techniques, but you could tell me, I had this incident, last week where this guy was super big and I tried this and it didn't work because he was doing this. Well, cool, let's address this, right? That's coaching. That's training for wins, not
Yeah.
training to say we were just there.
Yeah. And then hoping that it goes well.
Hope has no place in preparation for law enforcement,
No. Well,
right?
and
No
I was
place.
like, and I'm not one like I don't do like I can admit don't do any other like I don't do jujitsu, any other kind of martial
Right.
art outside of work. So
For
I'm
sure.
not sitting here over being like, yep, everyone needs to do this and blah. Like,
No,
no, I'm also one of the people that I have my 8 hours every year. I mean, I still like go to the gym,
love
work
it.
out, do all that stuff, but I'm not the one I'm not doing jujitsu 3 times a week
Love it.
and doing all this other stuff. But
And guess what? You should have a place in my class.
I should.
Absolutely. Not only that, like you need a place in that class. That's perfect, right? Because here's what I tell people. The goal isn't to make every police officer a jujitsu black belt, although that'd be great. It's not to make them all American wrestlers, but there's nothing wrong with that. Because just like not everybody wants to do that, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to do math. I didn't get into police work to do math. I don't want to sit at a table and calculate speed and direction and velocity and mass and yaw marks to figure out who is at fault for that big ass crash. I don't want to do it. I don't want to fly a drone. I don't play with remote control things. I that's not my interest, but somebody needs to do it. So I'm glad there's people who want to do it. So if I
Yeah.
come to a drone training, don't teach me how to be the best drone guy. Teach me as a patrolman, when do I call the drones? How do I set up a safe perimeter for you? What is it you want? How big does it have to be? What are the parameters? Teach me what it means for me. And let me go about my day. And then I'll go back on the mat. I'll learn some new shit. I'll put it in the parameters of law enforcement and I'll teach you what it means to you, but you don't have to be the best. Right? Again, it's these extremes, right? Like it's these extremes, like, oh, we all have to be this or that. No, there's so many different roles in police work. Don't make everybody try to be great at all of them.
Hmm.
Find your lane and go. But when it comes to safety, I owe it to you. Whether you spend the minimum 8 hours with me or a ton of extra hours, I owe it to you to make sure you're prepared to return to your family. That's the ultimate line, right? That's the bottom line. That's when I challenge my students on day one in the class. Who are you here for? Right? And like, oh, my agency sent me about. I'm like, no, that's cool. And I always ask them, like, what do your kids think you're doing today? Like, what do your kids think? What does your husband or wife, mom and dad, what do they think? And they give me some answers. I go, okay, that's cool. But here's what I think they think. They think that this guy that just came in from wherever the hell I've been is going to make you harder to kill, period. That's my job, to make you harder for anybody to kill. Because that's all they want to know. They don't give a shit what techniques you know, who taught it. They just want to know mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle. Did you just get harder to kill today so you can come to my birthday tomorrow?
Yeah.
And when we quit taking for granted that we get an opportunity to train, we don't take for granted that I get the opportunity to spend time with you to actually learn who you are and understand who you are. Now it's my job to coach you to be better than you were 10 minutes ago. Because your family's counting on that, how much more would I give to classes? And that's what I challenge students. Like, we can't just go through the motions. The stakes are too high.
Yeah. I'd agree. And I think and people don't put themselves in that headspace until like you are fighting with someone on the street and you're like, "Oh shit." You're
Too
like,
late.
Luckily this went, okay."
Lucky.
But
Right.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like lucky or thankfully it went this way and it got resolved, but you can always for lack of a better term, you can always Monday quarterback yourself or somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's also not even a negative critique, but being like, okay, I need to get my ass into doing
For sure.
this or this.
Yeah, being
Because
honest
you're
with
gonna
yourself.
yeah, because you're gonna have that pucker moment or you're gonna have that oh shit moment. And I've had those. I've had
I
those
think
plenty of
everybody's
times.
career has.
Yeah, I've had those plenty of times where I'm like, man. And like I said, lucky, I hate to use the term, but or I'm happy it went this way or it got
Yeah,
resolved or it went well. And then trust me, there are one things that went well because things were done correctly.
for sure.
It's not always, oh fuck, well, thank God that went this way or else, but no, I would agree but I think it doesn't always sit in that perspective in everyone's brain in the forefront until you're introduced into something like that.
Yeah, which is why our training has to be harder, which is why our training should be tougher, which is why you should sweat in training. If I go to a law enforcement training and I don't see and it's defensive tactics, it's use of force, and I don't see there's no warm up, and I don't see anybody sweating, like, I'm like, "Okay, well, this is training at the bare base minimal," right?
Yeah.
Because that's not realistic. You're gonna have elevated heart rate. In those moments you talked about, I will guarantee there was elevated heart rate.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that means we have to train at that same heart rate at some point in our day. We need, right? Like handcuffing, we do handcuffing so many reps. Well, handcuffing doesn't have to have a super high heart rate because it's something we do all the time. However, weapon retention, fighting for a gun,
Hmm?
should have an extremely high heart rate because we don't do it very often. When we do, the stakes are high, the adrenaline dump is huge. So we as coaches have to mirror what does the training environment look like for what is the real world application, right? And the example, like football is a big sport, right? Do you think like the Chiefs don't practice their 2-minute drive down by 3 in overtime under stress with loud noise? Do you think they just don't practice that? They only practice being up by 20 with 3 minutes to go and sending in their backups. No, they practice. They bring in as much of the environment as they can, the noises, the crowd, all the things, all the variables that they can reasonably bring to practice, they want to practice against, so at the game, they're not caught off guard.
Right.
That's what law enforcement coaching is about, right? Like, I wanna prepare you so that when the bad guy tests you on the street, the bad man or woman, and they're it's that moment where it's like, "Oh, one of us is this isn't gonna go well."
Right.
We've trained beyond their skill level. We've trained beyond their heart level. And I can't do that just through skills. It's about getting you to believe, knowing why you're doing what you're doing, you knowing why you're doing what you're doing. So in those moments of doubt, we're not left to think, is this worth it? We know why we're doing what we do.
Yeah. And I like just even how you've been talking like this whole time about instructing versus coaching.
Big
Like
difference.
there being a big difference. And again, you never think of something like that because if you're a trainer, a coach, an instructor, like you think of all three of those titles giving somebody tools into whatever they're
For
learning, you're
sure.
teaching, whatever. But breaking it down because our when we had FTO school, the guys he would always call us coach because that you're all coaches. You're out there to coach.
Good for them.
But when I don't know, just how you broke it down about instructing versus coaching, like instructing, I'm giving you these tools, but and it's going to be based on how you implement those tools, and it doesn't really come back to me. Well, even when I was at FTO, I'm like, okay, well, if I went over this however many times with my recruit and it's still not clicking, I'm like, what is it with me that's not, or how can I change this so that it makes sense, or
Mm,
that if it's multiple reps or a different approach, like I would ask, I'd be like, I'm the person that has to do something in order to understand it. So even with it's something hands-on, I can't
mm,
just like I couldn't just watch you be like, this is how we're gonna do whatever this hold is. I'm like,
for
okay,
sure.
let's break down the steps. I'm gonna do it as you do it. Where some people can. They can just watch somebody do it and then do it. But trying to tailor to how people learn things or can actually absorb it and process it, that's definitely a coach mentality and not just an instructor mentality.
For sure. And there's nothing like, and people are like, well, instructor's a title. I'm not talking about the title of instructor. I'm talking about the act of instructing, the act of teaching, the act of coaching, right? And there's a big difference there. And yeah, I think it's when we stop for a minute and realize we're interacting with other humans that are trusting us to help make them better, why would we want to short them? Why would we want to not give them everything we know to make sure they're going to come home? Because that is the ultimate fear in law enforcement, right? Is I just don't make it home. And it's healthy. And I can't tell you, Ariana, you're coming home every shift. Can't tell you that. We know by signing up for this profession, there's a chance you won't. Or we at least know we're guaranteed you're not coming home in the same shape you left every day, right? We got a mental toll, we got a physical toll, spiritual toll. We know this.
Yeah, and all three of those tie in because, like, if you're physically
All they
not
do.
taking care of yourself, you're mentally probably not, all together. Spiritually, whatever, it all eventually ties in, and
So
you know,
here's what I'll tell you though. You shouldn't not come home physically because I didn't give you the skills necessary to win. You should not come home the same mentally or spiritually because I didn't help in that time we were together to remind you of your purpose, to give you something to believe in that's a little bit bigger than you, to challenge you to get out of the rut of your current thinking, to remember why you wanted to do this job and live this life in the first place. And that's what I always tell my students is like, I want you to picture a minute now. You got to go to a funeral, and whoever didn't make it home, their family and their children are there. The worst thing I could ever imagine is going up to them and saying, I'm sorry I didn't give more to make this avoidable. Because we know it's a possibility, but here's what I'm going to tell you. It's not going to happen to you interacting with me because I didn't try my best to make you better.
yeah,
And if we started every class with that, how much more would we give? And then would the cops appreciate the training a little better if they're like, man, I like training with Ariana because when I come in there, she makes me feel better. She makes me think about, wait a second, I don't have to be pissed off that she says this and I say that in the report and it drives me fucking nuts. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter if you're coming home and we're making each other better. But in a profession that just kind of eats its own and feast on like negativity and we don't check it to get out of that cycle, that's what your hours coaching's for. If I get you for 8 hours a year, man, I'm gonna make sure they're the best 8 hours you get all year because we're gonna invest in you and you're gonna have to think and you're gonna have to show up ready to go,
yeah,
not just checking the box to say you were there.
man. You're hitting me with all the feels. Have me talk. Oh,
Well,
man.
that's why I do what I do. That's why we decided to continue with Team Hardy ground tactics, and that's why we travel the country, and that's why we took the risk and we sold our house and we sold our gym in 2021, and now we just live out of our Airstream, traveling the country, getting new experiences, teaching our courses, exploring new places, and getting to meet awesome new people.
I was say traveling now. I was like, because where are you at now?
Baja, Mexico. I'm outside La Paz, Playa Tecolote. So it's a super cool beach. There's probably like 50 people camped out around here. Free.
You trying to bring Team Hardy Ground Tactics International or what?
Yeah, I've been speaking a lot of Spanish. I'm actually I enjoy it. I mean, I'm not very good at it. Like, there's a lot of pointing and confused looks, but we eventually get through the conversation.
Oh man, well, that's all
Yeah.
that matters, right? Eventually get there.
People ask me, like, this is our third year of living out of our Airstream and traveling. Like, what's the biggest thing that kind of took us by surprise? And here's what I'll share is no matter where we've been, because we went to Costa Rica for a month, we did Florida in the Southeast. We've done like 25 states plus now Mexico and a month in Costa Rica. People are nice. If you just give them a moment of your time, you smile, you greet them, and you're actually curious to listen to them, we've met so many nice people out here.
I'm sure, and depending too, that's gonna be relationships that you can build, and then so
Oh, we've
whenever
met
you decide to go back to Baja, you've
for
got those
sure.
connections.
Yeah, we met so many good people, not only just the other people that are traveling like us, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The local communities we get to interact with are pretty amazing.
Yeah, and especially just getting to, like you said, I live in the retired life, but still getting to travel. Semi-retired because you still got the ground tactics stuff, but
Yeah, no,
retired
we
from
got to
law
make our
enforcement.
money, but that's the thing. Like, life's short. Bet on yourself, right? I believed, and thankfully my wife believed too that like, hey, we could walk away because in Colorado law enforcement gets paid well. We were like six figures, and you got, a good 401k contribution every month and health insurance stuff. We're like, no, we can do something different. Like, we don't have to be tied to making this amount of money to do all this stuff. Like, let's figure out what we want to do. And this was her idea, and I was like, "Cool, I've never towed an Airstream or had a pickup, so let's go learn some new shit."
Hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so it's been good, man. It's been
No,
good.
that's awesome. That's so awesome. I appreciate you taking your time out of your nice little winter getaway to come on
Mm.
here with me and chat.
Suntan, beaching, yeah, Mexico
No,
life
I'm
is
like, "You're
good
looking
in the
tanner
winter.
than I am. You're looking way well, this ring light doesn't help, but I was like, "You're looking way more tan than I am." I know, it just snowed. It was, like, 55 the other day, and then by,
Yeah.
like, 3 PM, it was snowing, and we had a blanket of snow. It's already melted, but
No,
n
thanks.
no. I'm
We're
ready for spring. I'm ready for winter to be
yeah,
done.
that's one thing as I've gotten older, our window for, weather's shrunk. We like, like, low 80s to high 60s. I don't need any winter. I don't need hundreds. Just right in that little sweet spot.
Yeah. See, just now I'm just jealous. I can now really tell you that I'm jealous. I have no
It's
shame in that.
awesome. No, well, we'll cross paths again for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll get my little pop-up or something, and I'll be like, "Alright, Jerrod, where you at now?
Yeah, no, I'd
Come
love
and
to
say
do
hi."
that. For sure. Yeah, you let me know. I'll tell you where we're at. Like right out looking out the window, we got probably like 15 different school buses that people have built out and a bunch of vans.
That's so
And
wild.
yeah, and honestly, Mexico's not that difficult to, at least Baja. I haven't done mainland, so let me preface only Baja, but it was a pretty easy process to come across and travel, and people are super cool to you.
Yeah, see, and that's you get out there and travel, and I was gonna say too, obviously going like Costa Rica, Mexico, different cultures, and then
Yeah,
even just seeing how they live or just seeing how different it is versus living in the United States.
man, it makes you appreciate things, right? When you see
Mhm.
the resources they create a life with, and how happy they are, and how much they laugh, and um, how much they party on Sundays. Like the Mexican culture in Baja, like they work every day except Sunday. And Sunday, man, the music's going, the barbecues are going. It's fun to watch.
Sunday's the party day.
Yeah, like we had this. So where we're camped, there's a local couple that was passing through, brought their kids and camped out of their car, just like 20 feet from us, and they were so nice. And probably didn't speak any English, so we went over and talked as best we could. Then they made like ceviche, which is like a shrimp,
Oh, so
fresh
good.
ceviche, and brought it over to us to thank us for coming to talk with them. And you're like, wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome. Oh, see, now I want ceviche. See, now I might go get ceviche for lunch after this.
I don't know that Chicago has the freshest shrimp, but I'm sure you'll be all right.
No, no, you're also true. I would still find a more authentic place, but still,
Yeah.
maybe some enchiladas. Enchiladas sound
Well,
good.
there you go.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's good. And that's why, like when we talked before, like bet on yourself. The details will come to you. You don't have to have all the answers.
No, and that's a struggle for me because 'cause I'm like, I wanna be good at everything right away. I wanna be able to have a grasp on it, know what it is, but that's also one of the things for 24 is patience. Patience
Yeah,
and being
that's
gentle.
good. Yeah, I love having a word for the year. Mine is act. My word for 2024 is act. It's time to not be compiling data or looking for trends or analyzing. It's just time to keep acting step after step. So we as a family each year we each create a word for the year to hold each other accountable. So
I like
act
that.
is mine for the year.
Have you been successful so far? 2
Yeah, it
months?
feels good. Yeah, we feel real good. We got a lot of good momentum in different areas, and yeah, it feels well. Feels like we're doing right.
No, I'm happy for you. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be on the show with you. I'm glad to see you sharing your story with the world and getting out there because every story needs to be told.
I'm trying. Trying. But to close out this, so
Yeah,
it's gonna be every guest, I'm gonna ask them the 3 same questions, and
sweet.
obviously, well, I'm assuming everyone's gonna have a different answer, but so the first question,
Yep.
so when you're in a bad headspace or kinda in a slump, I guess it doesn't have to be particularly one song, but what's a song that comes to mind that you're like, "This'll get me out of it," or at least
Uh,
help get you
oh,
out of it?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm a big music person, so
Me too.
I love my Spotify end of year Wrapped when I see where I'm at in my percentages. So right now, I have on loop, on repeat constantly is "Hello, My Son" by Trevor Hall.
Okay.
Super cool song. It's, just about he just had recently had a son, and it's just kinda about seeing life through his son's eyes and the excitement of living life, and I think that's a great message for all of us is that we can choose to be excited about today. We can choose to be excited about whatever challenge we get today. So that's my jam right now. "Hello, My Son," Trevor Hall.
Well, my son. Alright, because yeah, I'm putting together a Spotify playlist, so every guest that
Yeah, I
has
love it.
one, I'm gonna compile them together. Because again,
Yeah.
like, now what kinda genre is Trevor Hall?
Gosh, I don't know what you'd consider him. He's kinda like an Americana folky,
Okay,
he tours a lot. Like, he's toured with, oh gosh, my wife, Jack Johnson,
okay.
Xavier Rudd, let's see, I don't know if they Trevor Hall.
Yeah, definitely more kind of folk. Yeah.
Yeah, he has 1.4 million listeners monthly on Spotify. He's good, man. Real humble guy.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up for sure.
Trevor Hall, you got it.
Trevor Hall. Cool. Alright, the next one's a little deep,
Talk to
but
me.
what do you believe your purpose is?
Oh man, purpose. That's one of honestly that for me has been consistent throughout my life. If you follow my story at all, is my parents. My mom was 16, my dad was 17 when they found out they were pregnant with me, and they had a lot of options. And this was a long time ago, and they chose to keep me. And my purpose has always been kind of tied to. I remember specifically, it was a birthday of mine, and I remember I was just in this building and the fire station was next door, so I got to watch these fire trucks race by all the time. And I remember just sitting there looking out the window and I loved it. It was so fun. And I remember on this day I had like 5 cakes in there. And like for that moment, I felt like the most special little dude in the world. I was like, man, it's my birthday and I got 5 cakes. And I didn't know why I had 5 cakes until much later in life. And I asked my mom about it. And her and I are super close. And I asked her, I said, "Do you remember that birthday? I had like 5 cakes and I got to watch the fire trucks and everything." And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Why did I have those cakes? Like, where were we?" And turns out I was in her GED classes with her. And the cakes were from all the other young teenage moms that were also in class because we couldn't afford daycare and stuff. So I went to high school with my mom. So my purpose has always kind of stemmed from just being aware of a little person that she gave up a lot to keep me. So my purpose is to live my life to as completely as I can and to share as much of it with her as possible so that she never wonders if that was the right choice.
Oh, you're gonna bring a tear to my eye.
So and it's one of my strengths is I've known that for a long time. I've known that since I was a little guy, and we went through some, like all family, some drama and stuff and some challenges. But I've known that, like, okay, I've got to do this because my mom didn't get a chance to because she kept me. I've got to do this because this is a story. And she's like my number one podcast fan. She's like my, yeah, my mom and my grandma were the 2 people, no matter what you said you were going to do, they believed in you.
Yeah,
And not
that's
only then when you did something, you were the best. Jared, that's the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich you could have ever made. You're the best at making those. And not a lot of people believed in me. And there were certain people in my family that I would say were completely opposite. But I believed in me, and my mom believed in me, my grandma believed in me. And that has driven me to do all the stuff I do in life, and to make sure that not only is she proud, but that my family knows I love them and that they're inspired to go out and do great things and just do things that not everybody has to understand why you're doing it. And you don't have to know all the answers or all the possible outcomes. You just got to go, and you're going to find things that you didn't know about yourself along the way.
Wow. I was not expecting that answer.
Ah,
I don't
yeah,
know
that's in
I
my
don't know what
book
I
and
was
stuff.
expecting.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
what's the name of your book again? Because it's
Extraordinary people in ordinary places, and that was actually the prelude to the podcast. I wrote that to just share stories of extraordinary people that have crossed my path in life, and at the end of each chapter to challenge readers, like, are there people doing this in your life, and are you thanking them? Are you aware of them? Do they know the role they're playing with you in your life? Because I don't want us always looking to politicians or celebrities or football players, whatever. Like, the people around you are doing great things. And a lot of times we don't recognize them until we're at a funeral, right? And you're like, all of a sudden now you hear all the impact this guy had on people, yet we never told him or her.
yeah.
So that was the book. And then, yeah, the podcast kind of spun off, and it just, well, as you know, it just shares stories of people doing cool shit around the world.
Hell yeah. No, but that's awesome. My mom and I are super close. My mom was a single mom.
Yeah.
So we grew up super close. I mean, she'll tell me if I fuck up a PB&J, but she is still one of my biggest supporters,
Love
and
it.
always is. I actually had breakfast with her this morning before for the
Oh, very
podcast.
cool.
Yeah, we went to breakfast, and because that was the thing we would do on weekends too. There's always a local restaurant we'd go to, and pretty almost every weekend we'd go and
Yeah.
have breakfast. So now being an adult and having different schedules and stuff, she was like, "Can we do breakfast on Sunday?" I was like, "Sure, mom."
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, one of the
So
things I love about our current lifestyle and the transitions is that class in Montana twice a year. I fly in and I just stay at my mom's house, and I just drive back and forth to class, so we get to at least reconnect, for 2 or 3 weeks a year, which is pretty important as time gets shorter.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that makes me so happy. It does, like, that just warms it does, it really warms my heart because like you said, you're like, your parents, like you said, they had a choice
Mhm.
in keeping you, and I'm sure your mom would probably tell you it's one of the best decisions she's probably ever made.
I would agree.
No.
I'd agree that's what she said. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
she
like,
would
"I don't
tell you
know."
that for sure.
But and then this last one. So, doesn't have to be again, doesn't have to be one, but what piece or pieces of advice would you have for the listeners regarding either mental health, self-care, wellness, anything like that?
Yeah, I like your mental health angle. So, what I would tell people about mental health is it's all the things, right? And I think, and I'm no expert, I'm just a dude that lives and has ups and downs, but I know in my world, when we don't try to compartmentalize a feeling we don't like, when we don't try to push it to the rear, we try to hide from it. That's when I'm at my best. When I just sit with it for a minute and go, okay, why am I sad today? Like, what happened to make me sad? Why am I sad right now? Why am I, whoa, 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 why am I getting angry right now? Why
Mhm.
did that just make me want to feel angry? Oh, why am I happy? Why does this feel so good? Right? Sit with them all and realize that all the emotions are critical, like we talked about at the very beginning. All of them are critical. Like, the sad days are important to have so that you know how good a good day, a happy day feels, right? And vice versa. And sometimes, 3 happy days is followed by a day where, like, I just don't feel it. It's good. It's time to reset. But I would just share that, like, don't hide from them, right? You don't have to be perfect every day. You don't have to be your best every day. And when you sit with the feelings and kind of really check in with yourself and ask yourself, like, well, okay, why am I feeling this? Maybe write it down, journal it out. Then our highs and our lows aren't so far apart.
Yeah, I'd agree
Right.
100%. 100%.
And I
Because I think
think that's a go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you say.
So, no, I agree 100% because I was also that person that wouldn't sit with my feelings.
For sure. I don't
Like,
think it's natural in law enforcement.
even
Right.
before that, even growing up as a kid, it
Yeah.
was just, "All right, well, I'm angry. I can kinda know why I'm angry, but I'll get over it." But
I,
actually sitting with it, being like, "All right, I'm angry because of this," and then deep diving into, is this something that's, like, I can fix? Is it something in my control? Is it
right.
you know, and actually, I guess, lack of a better term, analyzing it
For sure.
and then realizing that, okay, I'm going to have my moment of my little pity party and then I'm over it. Then we got to move.
See, there you go. Right. Accept it, sit in it for a minute and get rid of that shit. It's like I teach my kids, we have a saying, ruck it, chuck it, fuck it. And like you lose, you're hurt, you're feeling about whatever, ruck it. Like take that feeling, put it in your backpack, carry it around a little bit, right? Feel the weight of it. Like losing should sting, right? Coming up short shouldn't be a great of feeling, right? And then once you feel like, okay, you've got it, you've analyzed it, like you said, you've learned a lesson, you take it out and you throw that rock out your backpack as far as you can. You chuck it. And then you're just like, fuck it, let's go forward.
I love that. I'm going to use that now.
Rock it, chuck it, fuck it.
And yeah, but I think even just the first part of it, the ruck it, that people are like, oh, this is weighing on me. It's got to sit on me. But people, I shouldn't speak for everyone, obviously, but it's having that either self-awareness or ability to feel vulnerable to sit with it and let it be heavy. Because no one wants, they're like, oh, this is weighing on me. I got to get rid of it.
For sure. And then not staying too long.
Yeah.
Right?
But then putting it away.
Right. Not carrying it for the rest of your life. Like this Jerrod shouldn't be carrying around 16-year-old Jerrod's issues. Like he should have dealt with those.
Yep.
Right. But a lot of times we don't. A lot of times we just carry them forever. So you sit with it, feel it, learn from it, get rid of it.
Fuck it.
There you go. Who doesn't like to say fuck it every now and then, right? You just move on.
Now you just gave me another reason to.
I love it.
No, my friend, I appreciate you. And I appreciate you coming on and chatting today.
I'm excited to be able to support the podcast and anything you're doing, my friend, because I got to ask, are you good?
I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. About to go hike over this hill to a top 10 beach in the world that you can only get to like walking.
See, you gotta rub it in. Yeah, I was like, send me pictures. I'm like, you gotta rub it in even more, man. Rub it in even more.
Nah, man, we'll get you out in one of these Sprinter vans before you know it.
Hey,
with the invention of Starlink, you can record podcasts from anywhere in the world.
That's awesome. And then where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, for law enforcement stuff, I'm primarily on LinkedIn under Jerrod Hardy, Instagram, Jerrod H. I don't know why I couldn't get Jerrod Hardy there. It's kind of travel, law enforcement, kind of just lifestyle stuff. Those are two good places. If you're interested in actual law enforcement training programs, our website, teamhardy.net, has all your information.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you. And again, I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up today.
I love it.
Not just physically here, but every day. Like you said, we got to wake up today. It's a good day.
Off on the right foot for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you.